It's August 31st, 2022. Whereabouts of this morning. I went to Port by myself, Port Washington. I went to Ivy Rehab, which is an HSS facility. So IHS is crystal clear with whatever and whatever. Since I checked in at Zion over the weekend. Um, I'm in my twinning gear, and there's still this in a household brand, whatever that's symbolic of in lettering. I think there's a twinning somewhere. Not quite sure, because when he's in my presence, normally it's Nicholas, but here we are in Inside Out and Upside Down, and some notable events. At one point, I was in a whaling town. Something happened to that whaling family elsewhere. Without provocation and without warning, I've been bedded by animals, according to extra special bloodline. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but here we are. This morning I'm watching the See the BS. They mentioned something about King James. Now, Alexander's middle name is James. My son, by the old gods and the new, we have a way of hierarchy in bloodlines and in what qualifies for this special heir title. I'm not quite sure what the newbies are doing in public media. Again, these are the is on the lam. I mean, they've traveled from elsewhere without permission, and they're on the lam. So now they're on my time, my turf, and there's sedition and treason going on, as well as what looks like mutiny. There's copyright issues. Now, I'm looking at this version. Someone gave this to me. Again, it's in twinning color. So I don't know what else to say about that. It says here, copyright information. There's an allowance, according to ESV, there's an allowance of up to 1,000 verses without a problem. They actually write it in their information, and they reference this as KJV, not KGB, KJV. In Guerrera, which is warfare of words, with the new, what looks like Spanglish or Spanglish. I don't want provocated wars that are unnecessary. There are people here on the lam. I have issue. I know others have had issue in their livelihoods. I don't know where help arrives from. I have not been able to figure that piece out. I have unexplained anemia that at first looked benign, and then all of a sudden turned into some like malignant, extreme, but yet obtuse event. No explained bleeding, no explained cause, to go from a 10 down to a 5.9. But I have, without provocation, people have crept into the house and caused problems for me in the past on these lands during this time frame where I'm in the blind. So I don't know what's going on elsewhere. So now, in this little version of Christian things, without Catholic, without Episcopalian, just on this alone, knowing that they reference in here KJV in North America. I see on See the BS this morning what was on the lam generations ago who now has some whatever. I mean, it played football, so I don't know if it's originally from America or if this is one of those crossover events. Again, this particular publication has some tie into Tennessee, it looks like, and something in Illinois, in crossovers and Gideons and whatever else, just for reference, proper reference, or formal reference of what am I referencing. I don't know. It's in print. This is what the North American Humans brought to my attention, or made sure that wherever I was, I left with on their behalf as a reference. So I'm watching this morning, and in the sports arena, under the NBA title of national problems, they are putting out in the North American public, I have a son here. I'm part of the Presidential Children's and Ancestries, which marks me monarch for this area, past into future. We have the bloodline. We have the stars. We have the formula of calculation of calendar, named and without name. I have my own biological anatomical calendar system. So that strips away a multitude of possible objective whatever that I wouldn't listen to anyway, because this is something that was built in purposely by the old world and the new. And here we are in summation and calculations. There are calculated moves at the moment from the Children on the Lam. There's been buses of Children on the Lam from elsewhere that they call them migrants, but I have no way of checking. They look more like vagabonds and more like vagrants than migrants, because they don't have permission from immigration, or immigrant with an E, for egress necessarily, because there's capacity issues, there is aristocratic issues, there's democratic issues, there's the establishment republic, and then there is the seditious acts of treason against the established republic and the establishment of the family with the bloodline and the cosmos, or the astro, that adds to their wealth of validity that's already been vetted. My issue in this area is the betting issue with animals. It was bad enough with the first set of animals. Now it's a second set, which, again, somebody once asked me, why are none of your children named after, let's just put it this way. My Daniel Lee, my suggestion for names, not that it went acknowledged or heard, was Charles. Jason, the animal, said that he's animal by blood. Bloodline is animal for God and the godline of heraldry, which is actually vetted. We are anatomically and ionically different. And to bet a god with an animal bloodline is seditious and treasonous all within its own, which should have been enough. But here we are, left to my own device and now my own security. And so here we are. So my suggestion was Charles, except he had an uncle named Charles who died of a heroin overdose and was not interested in women. They thought that that was a bad omen. So Jason told me to pick a different name. I picked Daniele, per my family of importance in Sauvi, and having a T in C'est la vie or ça va? Cosa fai?
I have to see here, 1-2 step. Okay, my talk to the table is the King. We're talking about King James back on the cover of Sports Illustrated. In 2002,
Now, here's a problem. A, he's not a king. And he's now proclaiming these things in public. People have heard him. And this is a sadistic and seditious act against my being in New York at the same time. But yet, where is my American government to shut this kind of shenanigans down? I'm just curious. I don't know who to ask and who to lean on. It looks like also the presidency at the moment has a November rain feel of President Joe Biden. But I'd have to ask the metalheads at Guns N' Roses, except they're not available at the moment because that was their acknowledgement when I was just a teenager waiting for the formality of the correct bed.
The magazine, along with a lot of other people, proclaimed LeBron James the chosen one. Wow. And now, 20 years.
These are nuclear warhead words. They have him on Sports as illustrated as the chosen one. They also have him with sons now, and there's no bloodline. Like, they'll say bloodline of Solomon. That's somewhere else. That's not North America. So that's seditious. The fact that he is promoting, and if you spell les États-Unis backwards, it's the sin state of the S with the L, E-L. I think someone at L on might get my drift. Where I'm having a problem is with what's allowing this to go on. And I know there are vetted partners and alliances. What I am unclear at is why these things on the lam are a festering like staph infection that are growing worse and being promoted and like, is it promiscuously promoted, it feels?
Years later, he's on the cover with his two sons, 17-year-old Bronny and 15-year-old Bryce, and there's a new tagline, the chosen sons. Wow. Yep, the four-time NBA champion, he has said that he wants to play with Bronny, who is eligible for the 2024 NBA draft. LeBron James signed a big extension in the offseason for $97 million, potentially keeping him around in Los Angeles through that time. We're talking about the 2024-2025 season, so it is.
Let's just speak stars for the moment, like real stars, not these promiscuous problems in les États-Unis, Stati Uniti, the United States of America, being North America, being my home turf, and being where I am unacceptable of these terms, and what I'm not abdicating anything to these things that are on the lam from elsewhere and in my area and on radio committing these seditious acts of treason against my person and my children and my ancestors and the larger existential family I have somewhere in twinning that I can't find. I know I had a twinning member when we began in Lloyd Harbor Elementary who was by my side pretty much from the time I entered the building until he left to go do whatever his side of twinning needed to do. There's a movie called Captain America that came out in 2014. Inside of it, there's this Iron Man and Captain America and the Civil War going on. And they mention this Wanda character. I can only imagine it's Wonder, but Wanda. And then, which goes back to the Magi, M-A-G-I. By the way, I gave birth to the IC in Roman numerals. The 19th century IC in Roman and in Alpha and in LF. That is huge. I don't understand how this keeps propagating in some kind of pornographic manner with money and whatever, and allowed to seditiously act in this behavioral gang warfare of words and other things.
It's possible that he is able to play with his oldest son.
It's amazing to think about the weight of expectation on
Boom.
young LeBron, and then
Boom.
he delivered and even out-delivered.
Boom. Listen, I wrote a poem a while ago, and I said, if heavy is the head that wears the crown, then the pressure on the prince must be immense.
Yes.
And just think about these two sons who have looked at their father, who is now in the conversation of the greatest basketball player of all time.
Yeah.
I will say this, those guys got skills, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look really good on the court.
I'm sure
All this sedition goes on daily. I don't know how to wrap it in a nice, beautiful bow and hand it over to the American militia, or North American militia, that is supposed to have sworn service and allegiance to myself as I do to them. I haven't really been able to find where they exist. There was some U.S. oversight committee that looks like a business office that's propagating all of the wrong things or doesn't really have my best interest at heart. That's been really evident. Especially the way November Rain's campaign and like what he's putting in chairs. Are you crazy? I mean, I don't understand how the man wasn't executed for treason when Obama broke into the White House. But here we are, another decade after, and it's still going on. And like, where are the fact checkers and the vets on this? Here, this is the Civil War mention I get at Captain America for my son, who is the IC. They played this movie for me on August 30th for August Vatters, which is the 8-3, and I got a big old goose egg on bed. Might I add, my son looks a lot like this. Different Darwinian nose, but looks a lot like this actor. And my son actually is the 19th century IC for Roman numerals.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but there would have to be safeguards.
Sure. Once we put out the PR fire, these documents can be amended. I'd file a motion to have you and Wanda reinstated.
Wanda, what about Wanda?
She's fine. She's confined to the compound currently. Mission's keeping her company.
Oh, God, Tony, every time I think
Well,
you
it's
see
100
things the right
acres
way.
with a lap pool. It's got a screening room. There's worse ways to protect people.
Protection. Is that how you see this? This is protection? It's internment.
She's
Tony.
not a U.S. citizen, and they
Oh,
don't
come
grant
on,
visas to
Tony.
weapons of mass
She's a
destruction.
kid.
Give me a break! I'm doing what has to be done to save up.
This feels like there's a little bit of a staph infection going on. Like, for real. It looks like there's some past administration had some staffing issues. It seems to be an ongoing rolling event, like a tsunami now. The wall was there that they created and built, and now the wall's about to fall over and just demolish everything that ever was, everything that they ever worked for. And now there's people scrambling for what party do they belong to, what was built, how do we preserve it, like shore up the framing from the builders that like helped us along the way, because now they're all about to croak and now we're going to be in charge, and we're still not on track for anything that resembles a country or a nation in some form of safe keeping. And now this scene, it's actually Wanda, and I don't know the red man's name, but it reminds me of the man in the gray trousers that came to visit me after I birthed the IC. the Roman numeral IC in the 19th century. I was visited by someone that looks very much like this, with gray trousers, who visited me with another person that I did not recognize. And I was brought to that location, and then from that location, something happened, which I can't remember, because I woke up in a taxi cab later. I woke up, first of all, in Mike Kelly's kitchen in Comac, some limo drive that I don't remember, and I was very dizzy. Sandy was there from the office, if ever anybody remembers 1010 Northern Boulevard or 200 Middle Neck Road in Great Neck, 11021. And then I went out again, not drinking. I had absolutely nothing to drink, just a lot of going totally, and then waking up in a taxi cab because Peter was dropping me off in Lake Grove, which was 2 Miller Drive, Lake Grove, New York, 11755, back when that was my living address, since I've had to be moved several times. And then I woke up in the back of this taxi, and I felt really drunk, and I had no idea how that even happened. I'm like, how much did I drink? And there was no answer to be had because I hadn't drank anything.
Is that paprikash?
I thought it might lift your spirits.
Spirits lifted.
In my defense, I haven't actually ever eaten anything before, so
Anything.
please.
Right, yeah, I wouldn't want to eat in what they feed the animals in this section, either, being that I am not of animal or xeno blood or ability for medical necessity to receive transplant from such, unlike some of the others that are housed in this section. But they've got the food all messed up, the ionic compounds, the integration of services, the availability of the proper nutrition, even the words and construct are so tedious to even have to try to ascertain while trying to keep oneself healthy. It's absolutely morbid in the availability of what I need to necessitate like the proper health functions, and then to have this unexplained blood loss. And it's not by an internal bleed, but I went from a blood volume of 10 to a blood volume of 5.9 almost overnight, and had to be put into the hospital, which is on my medical records, and had 2 units put in. I went to the hematologist, oncologist at my 4, 5, 6 week checkup. I'm still only in the 10 range, which means that my bone marrow, it's not aplastic anemia necessarily, but there's something that's going on where I'm not getting, she even said that I was not at optimal levels. I was still slightly, I was still low on the lower end of the volume, but she's keeping an eye on it.
Wanda,
Hmm.
no one dislikes you, Wanda.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's an involuntary response in their amygdala. They can't help but be afraid of you.
Are you?
My amygdala is synthetic, so.
I used to think of myself one way, but after this, I am something else. I'm still me, I think, but that's not what everyone else sees.
There was also another event where somebody that looked along this line, who was also very kind to me, at least to my face, was in Canada. When I arrived, after whatever went on between the airport and where I was finally taken to, I was a little dizzy. I was with Tiafrio 1976, the Knights of Columbus person, the Catholic, just so the Episcopalians are on par with the Ireland, like, Auslander, outside the Bailey, but outlaw nonetheless, as far as I'm concerned. That's how he's lived his life. No judgment, just facts. And got to broker owner with Steve Morris in Canada. And as I entered the facility, I was very dizzy. I was holding my own because I'm used to these pressure changes in the atmosphere that I pick up on. And I try to adapt and wear poker face. But somebody actually came up to me about the calendar, asking if I knew the calendar date, which I did not. I said, I have to look at my ticket, honestly. I knew I had to come here. I seem to have known in New York what it was. I was like, but I don't. And then I asked Tiafrio as a reference. I don't remember what his answer was. It's irrelevant because this is what I was speaking to in mannerism and in... So, not quite sure what that was all about either, but here we are.
Do you know, I don't know what this is. Not really. I know it's not of this world, but how Loki's staff gave you your ability as a vet.
That's an interesting... Oh, this came out in 2016. I stand corrected. So, Loki's staff. No, that's interesting. So, Loki is the god of mischief and mischievous whatever. So with this level of staff infection in management and with the way they've been sinning and propagating and growing almost unchecked, but hopefully that will be rectified soon enough, is that what grew the powers.
Its true nature is a mystery, and yet it is part of me.
Are you afraid of it?
I wish to understand it. The more I do, the less it controls me. One day, who knows, I may even control it.
I don't know what's in this, but it is not paprika. I'm gonna go to the store. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Alternatively, we could order a pizza.
Vision, are you not letting me leave?
It is a question of safety.
I can protect myself.
Not yours. Mr. Stark would like to avoid the possibility of another public incident until the Accords are on a more secure foundation.
And what do you want?
For people to see you as I do.
So that's one of the movie references that they've offered up to me in this area that I've stumbled upon. It came on the other day. It was one of those paid for movies that I didn't have permission to, whatever, being that it's Linda's account. And so it came on TNT and I taped it on August 30th. Today's August 31st, 2022. Its Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and its Bayside station, Bayside, New York, 11361.